Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week, we've got tons of stuff to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the first Marvel trailer, where we got to see the first look at Loki, WandaVision, Falcon, and the Winter Soldier. We had the investors call, so we've got loads of information about Disney Plus subscriptions. We've also got some other bits and pieces of news that have happened during the week around Disney. We're also going to be sharing our thoughts on the new trailer for Shop Class and also giving our thoughts on the brand new Disney Plus original movie, Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. And I think there was a few in that movie. But nevertheless, let's move first off onto a little quick bit of housekeeping before we go any further. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel. We now have just shy of 35,000 people over there, so make sure you are subscribed over there. If you listen to the audio platforms, make sure you subscribe there. You can find us on iTunes, Google, and also Spotify. And if you haven't already done so, is where you can find us on all the different social medias, including our Facebook group, which is over 100,000 members large. There's a lot of discussion going on in there. And also a big thank you to our patrons for their support, including Andrew, Giuseppe, Julie, and What's on Netflix, for all of their support. All of that does make a massive difference to keeping sure that the podcast keeps going. So nevertheless, let's jump into the news. And there was a lot of it this week. It's really heavy. So let's talk about first off the Super Bowl side of things, or the big game as they have to call it, because Super Bowl isn't supposed to be said out loud. So two teams did stuff and threw some bits and pieces around a field. I don't know. I don't even know who won, I'll be honest. Let's talk about the big, most important thing from that there was we got a number of trailers. We got to see a new trailer for Black Widow, which is coming out in May in cinemas, and Mulan, which is coming out in March, which I'm going to say. What do you think of that Mulan movie before we get into the Marvel stuff?
I don't know yet. I mean, all we've got to go on are the trailers. Yeah. But I would say that it looks different from the original, and not just because they're not including the music. You know, they've got the whole witch thing going on, and the crow is actually part of the movie. Other than that, you know, it's kind of up and down at the moment. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out as an actual movie.
I'll be honest, from the trailer, I'm actually really liking the look of this. This looks right up what I love. All the big, like the Chinese epic battle movies, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, House of Flying Daggers, Hero. I usually try and watch quite a few of these big movies quite a bit. I love that how the whole aesthetic of this movie is really appealing to me. The big, like, Chinese battles, and this is actually, I'm going to be honest, it's probably sliding up there to be one of those like remakes, and I'm probably more interested in this one than I think I've been in any of the other ones, because it looks like they've changed it enough, and I'm more interested in the story. I'm not attached to the original. I've only seen it a few times. It's like, okay, if you want to do a remake, do it differently, and this looks like it's doing that rather than just being a scene-for-scene remake. So I'm much more interested. I'm definitely going to go see this one when it comes out at cinemas before it comes on to Disney Plus. Whereas some of the live action ones I haven't bothered, but this one's definitely going to be something I want to watch. I don't know if my wife's quite so bothered about it, but nevertheless.
I'm also a big fan of a lot of the older, well, they're older now, Chinese films like Crouching Tiger, Hero, House of Flying Daggers, The Monkey, Monkey King, I think it was. Donnie Yen back before he was huge. All the Jackie Chan stuff, etc. This does feel like it's got the flavor of that, but I don't know. It's not quite going for the same scope that those are. No. So it's a hard comparison to go with those.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to wait and see, because they'll be coming at cinemas next month.
Iron Monkey. That was
Iron Monkey. There we go. Iron Monkey. I am Iron Monkey.
Nothing like that.
So let's talk about the big one, really, which was the Marvel big game drop. We kind of started hearing rumblings the day before that there was going to be a Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of preview bit. And then when they showed it, it was free of the Marvel TV series. We got 30 seconds, maybe 5 to 6 seconds of each we got to see, but enough to whet everyone's appetite. It was the #1 trailer, I think, from the Super Bowl. It really caught everyone's attention. It was one thing that No, I think no one was expecting, and I think that was the difference. WandaVision has completely blown up in the fact that no one really knew what this thing was going to be, and it looks totally wacky. I think the fact that we got Loki at the end, kind of with time, he's in a time cop kind of place, and then obviously as well we've got Falcon, which we know they've been filming, and yeah, it just looks. This is a big boost for Disney Plus, which is exactly what it needed right now.
Yeah, they needed to remind people that there's more than just The Mandalorian on the way. Obviously, now more than ever, it's important to emphasize that because we are in a little bit of a content drought. And we have dates for them, rough dates for them now too, which is important.
Yeah, so Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be dropping in August. Then we're going to have season 2 of The Mandalorian will be dropping in October. We also now know as well that High School Musical, the series, will be returning for a second season, and it's going to be based around Beauty and the Beast. That will be dropping as well in the fall. And then finally, WandaVision is going to be dropping in December. Now, what that does mean for us, primarily, is we're now, I think, going to get from August right through to the end of the year of one big drop a week of each of them. Because you think, if you say Falcon and the Winter Soldier, say 6 to 8 episodes, that gets you through till maybe the end of September to the beginning of October. Drops into the Mandalorian, 6 to 8, 10, probably 8 episodes, something like that. That leads you into December, and then WandaVision cleans up right through. So pretty much then, from the whole back end of the year, we've got a big TV series every single week, which is what Disney Plus needs. But we've got a bit of a lull in between, but that's going to bring in a massive audience for Disney Plus each and every week and remind people of why you want this subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish it was coming a bit sooner, but I'm glad that the end of the year kind of fixes the main problem with Disney right now, Disney Plus right now.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with that one. The thing is, there's a lot of talk about and there's a lot of comments coming through on all our social media about people being like, "I'm dropping out. There's nothing on here. There's nothing else but The Mandalorian. I'm getting out." There's people annoyed that they've signed up for a year and they don't, this idea that they thought all of this was coming like all at once, which it never was, but that was the impression that they'd got, and they'd built up that. And there is a big chunk of people now, apparently, according to Bob Iger during the investors call, the churn isn't as high as they expected, but that was only up until the end of December as far as their results go. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in January when all of these, how many people have dropped out, which is what was going to happen. And I think that trailer really helped push the idea that there is something big and meaty coming to Disney Plus. But Marvel and Star Wars brings in a whole other different audience than I think Disney Plus has on its own. And I see it from, when we put out a story about Marvel or Star Wars, it does get so much more traction than anything else. It is so noticeable. And I know everyone goes on about the fact that they hate the remakes and they hate established reboots and all this kind of stuff. But I can tell you, we put out a little note saying a new thing that you've never heard of is coming. It's like crickets. Something to reboot or a rebrand or a Star Wars or Marvel, it shoots up. It's so difficult. The fact that everyone's going, we want something original. It's like, yeah, but when they give you something original, you don't watch it. Timmy Failure, it didn't look like that. We're only like 24 hours in since it's been released, but it wasn't moving the needle at all. It might do now it's starting to build up establishment. So when Timmy Failure 2 gets announced, it might have a bigger hit. But these big brands, they bring people in on such a different level than you see, and Marvel's going to do that. Oh, your mic's dropped.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's something we've talked about before. You definitely notice if you're online, forums, Reddit, whatever, there's a general backlash against the remakes, franchises, all of this stuff. And for a lot of it, I'm right there with them. I don't think we needed the Lion King remake. It was fine for what it was, but we didn't need it. I'm getting sick of all the reboots, and it's like, do something new. But at the end of the day, you look at the box office results, you look at the TV results, and it's like people are going to see them. Yeah. And you can complain all you want on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever. But if you still go and you spend the money, that's the part they listen to.
Yeah, I mean, this week, the Lilo and Stitch kind of movie news kind of build up. We've known about it for years, but it's kind of now it's going to be a Disney Plus original movie, and it's starting to film in Hawaii later this year. But the reaction to that there is probably one of the strongest reactions I've seen. Just so many people like, no, you're gonna, like, it's gonna ruin it and ruin my childhood and all sorts. And they're like, well, it's not gonna ruin. It's you've still got the original there. If you don't like it, then that's the end of it. But the reaction to that was so like negative and all the rest of it. But let's be honest, when a Lilo and Stitch movie hits Disney Plus, probably maybe next year or the year after, it's gonna be a massive draw. It will be, and unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it comes in. And I do think like these Marvel TV series, they're bringing in a whole new audience that comes into. I mean, we haven't really seen that, I think, on Disney Plus, but I think once the Marvel fans start piling in to Disney Plus, you're going to see a massive subscriber boost in August, and the difference is they will stick around because that's what Disney are planning on. They're planning on getting these Marvel fans in, and because once that ends, we know what we're going to see this time next year, and then you're going to have Loki probably dropping maybe March, April, leading into that, and yeah, it's going to be a massive boost for Disney Plus, and boosting it up. We can't really sort of say without kind of getting into that thing really of up till now, as of like this past Monday, Disney Plus has managed to pull in, I think it was 28.6 million subscribers. As of the end of December, it was 26. So they pulled in about 2 million. So it's 30.7 million subscribers for Hulu, and also 7.6 million subscribers for ESPN Plus. All of them are going up. The bundle has really helped boost up both of those other things. But now with 28.6 million subscribers to Disney Plus, obviously there's a big chunk of that is the free Verizon ones that might make up maybe 10 million of that. But straight out the gate within 3 months, they're already half of what the subscribers of Netflix are in the US. A massive boost.
Yeah, and the real question will be if they maintain the momentum. We already have people talking about not re-upping whenever their subscription ends, whether it's a month or a year. And I can't blame them for that. If there's not things you want to watch, then you shouldn't pay for it. I do think that there will be more people subscribing than unsubscribing, at least for the near future. I mean, at a certain point, there's only so many people you can get, but they're still in a growth. And then again, this announcement, which happened at the Super Bowl with the 3 Marvel shows, got the attention again. And I think that will keep the momentum going until the shows actually come out, and then they can kind of build their own.
Yeah. Because the thing is, the momentum is still going to build because we've got the European launch on the 24th of March. So that'll be a lot of the main Western countries. So you've got UK, Ireland, Germany, Italy, France, Spain, and I think also you've got Austria and Switzerland. And then later on in the year, you're going to be getting the Nordics and a few other things, and Portugal. So Europe is getting a big boost next month. So Disney Plus are going to boost up their numbers a lot next month with the European launch. Then they still have only gone into half of Europe. There's still massive chunks of Europe that they've not gone into yet. So they've kind of got to get that all sorted. The big news as well from that investors call was Disney Plus is launching in India through Hotstar on March 29th. They've not announced a price because it's kind of got to be all bundled in with Hotstar, which has over 300 million users. It's going to be part of a premium package, and there's a free. Didn't really get too much into the nitty gritty, but this is going to be something. I don't know how they are going to push the numbers and stuff, but the Disney Plus in India is really going to boost up how much revenue that particular region is going to bring in, because now you've got this whole other streaming service in India having all of this content, and that's a huge market. They aren't doing it as a separate app because they've already got this big meaty subscription service already running out there in India. And yeah, that's going to be a big influx of content for them, and also a nice new revenue stream for Disney Plus.
Yeah, I mean, India is a huge country, and even if they only get a small fraction of people subscribing, it's a big numerical amount. The only one that really competes is China, and I'm sure that's in the works somehow.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with China is they've got to work with a Chinese company to do it. They did actually launch Disney Life out there years ago, the streaming service that we've got in the UK, which is kind of being replaced by Disney Plus next month. But it did actually launch in China, and they had to do it with a Chinese company, but they had to close it down because China wasn't really liking it. Was all kind of non-Chinese stuff on there, so it did get closed down. So they've already tried like launching Disney Plus kind of already in China, and it didn't work. But things are changing so quickly out there. But yeah, I think the India launch, very important, massive audience. Again, not only that, but it brings more revenue in for Disney, into that region, into that department. So I don't necessarily think they're going to be then go, well, we've now got 300 million subscribers to Disney Plus, because they're going to count them separately. But on the bottom line, they're still going to be looking at, well, when we make The Mandalorian season 3, it's being funded by Hotstar just as much as it is by Disney Plus. So it will all have an impact. And maybe as well, I know with Netflix, there's tons of content from India dropping through. I know they have got Hotstar launching in, it's available in lots of different countries, but it's going to just help towards that bottom line for Disney Plus.
And anytime you can put out a news clipping that say we gained however many millions of subscribers, which is probably what will happen, it's good press.
Yeah, and they still got Latin America to go. They still got Asia to go, because they still got Philippines. Got Singapore. Probably won't be happening out in Japan because they've got Deluxe Disney, which is their own streaming service. But they've still got lots of countries. You've got the whole of the Middle East. You've got the whole of Africa. You've got big chunks still, and their plan is to get all of this, I think, done by the end of next year. So that's where they're going for scale with Disney Plus, to try and keep building on that momentum to keep becoming a global thing. On the side of that as well, from the investors call, they've talked a little bit about Hulu, about their plans for that, because they're bringing all the FX content into there in March, but also they're planning on launching that internationally after they finish with Disney Plus. They're totally focused now on getting Disney Plus launched internationally, and I also suspect as well they may be trying to get Comcast brought out, maybe, or get them out the picture before they start like going international with it, because ultimately they want full control. But they've got a vision. The bundle is obviously working for them. The amount of people that have signed up, and they've also said that the churn rate is much lower with the streaming bundle because people have got content coming in on all different sides. So if Disney Plus isn't getting it, Hulu's had new originals, and people are feeling like they're doing it. But generally, as a whole, the stock price was pretty good. The investors all seemed to like it because they hit exactly where they needed to. I mean, I did listen to that investors call, and there was quite a few bits and pieces that came out that were quite interesting. But they were dominated by Disney Plus. I mean, it's kind of quite strange because had all this stuff going on with like the coronavirus and them closing down 2 theme parks in China, and the impact that that's going to have didn't really even they didn't even move the needle on what they were talking about with that. It was all focused on Disney Plus and the expansions and how well it's going, because the whole kind of investor side is focused because they know that that's where the money is.
Yeah, and the only kind of nitpick point I would talk about that is, we have a tendency to lump Hulu in with the Disney Plus stuff, and even though it is a Disney product, pointing out that there's content on Hulu constantly dropping, constantly being added, doesn't really help Disney Plus and its current content drought, which isn't the best look. But it is true. There is stuff coming out on Hulu. There's still Marvel stuff on Hulu, which is itself a draw. But Yeah. Pointing out that there's content on Hulu is kind of disingenuous to the fact that there's not content, or new content, I should say, on Disney Plus.
No, it has been one of those things of a lot of people have been sort of saying about the fact that I've not fired up Disney Plus for a few weeks since The Mandalorian dropped. Why am I paying for it? And it's like, oof, that's not good. And, there's a lot of people just kind of looking at it and going, well, where's all the adult stuff? They're getting you in for The Mandalorian, but there's nothing to hang around for if you. And there's a lot of people going, there's loads of stuff. They got a lot of this. It's like, but your average mainstream adult viewer is not going to watch, remake or watching episodes of Hannah Montana and Lizzie McGuire over and over again. They want something a bit more interesting. What I thought was kind of an odd move this week was that Disney and Amazon have announced a deal for IMDB TV, where 21 old shows of their stuff is going to be available on their streaming platform for free. People can access it for free, and you'll have adverts on it and things like Lost and Malcolm in the Middle and all these other things. And they're going, why on earth? It's extra revenue coming in. They're not exclusive contracts, so they can still go to Hulu and Disney Plus. But it's like, you said Malcolm in the Middle was coming to Disney Plus last year, and it's still not arrived. This Lost all these shows would have been a really nice boost to being put available on Disney Plus for adults to watch and stuff. And it just that one really went down like a lead balloon, because I was like, well, hold on a minute, you put that Malcolm in the Middle on IMDb TV for free, but you've not put it onto Disney Plus yet. It's like you said it in the press releases last year that it was coming. It was literally in the top title was this show was coming, and they've not done it yet. And it's like, we need, I thought that was a really strange move.
Yeah, I remember reading that and just thinking this kind of takes some of the joy or the exclusivity out of Disney Plus, because Malcolm in the Middle, it may not be like The Office or Seinfeld or something, but there is a popularity to the show. And the same with Lost. I don't think that there's a huge number of people, relatively speaking, clamoring for them, but there's enough people who'd be like, oh, that is a show I remember really liking. That is a reason to get Disney Plus. But now you can go, well, it's on a free service right over here. What else you got?
Yeah, I think they're going to be on Hulu and stuff as well. It just seems like at the minute Disney are going, oh, we need some. It's there's obviously money involved. They're getting paid for it, and they're looking at ways of bringing in different revenue. But it does feel like, and there's this constant argument with Disney Plus of adult content. Oh, you don't need it on there. It's if you are a young family, if you're a family with kids, and your kids are watching Disney Plus all the time, and you're going, I want it to be, that's what it's for. It's kind of become this, kid video on demand system. They're looking at it and going, that's what it is. That's what it's for. I've got Netflix for all my stuff. Leave it alone. That's what I want it for. And it's that's not how it's being publicized and advertised to people. They're using the Marvel and the Star Wars shows and stuff like that to get adults in like us to subscribe. And they aren't. I still don't think they're delivering enough drama. There's not enough in that back catalogue to keep us as an adult viewer interested. And they've really kind of, I know they're like, oh, you've got Hulu for, the Searchlight and the FX and all the rest of it. It's like, well, no, because that's a whole other, to me, that's the next level up. That's mature content. It's just mainstream stuff that you sit down and watch in the evening. That's not like that. They just don't seem to be hitting that mark.
Yeah, there's a lot of content, say the Disney Afternoon collection, Darkwing Duck and DuckTales, which is very nostalgic. I know that I'm loving watching some of these again that I haven't seen since I was a kid, or just putting them on as background noise. But I also understand that most people in our age bracket aren't going to be, oh, I should definitely pay a monthly fee to see the old cartoons when I was a kid. It's a bonus, but it's not an incentive. And yeah, you need some stuff that we're not talking you need to have Fargo on here with people getting chopped up and violence and all that stuff. But you need stuff that is a little more stimulating than, the villain of the week in Darkwing Duck, or, the same story loops from Tailspin or things like that. You need things that kind of you can take a bite into and look forward to the ongoing narrative.
And I think that's where Disney have like, I think that's the problem with them, with the Marvel and the Star Wars stuff. Of they've kind of tapping into that audience, but they're not delivering anything else to get you. And they need to work on that. There's lots of series and stuff that they're working on, but I think as well of like, even if you're not into Marvel and Star Wars, they're not delivering anything to kind of keep going. I mean, I know we've got like the Fairy Tale Weddings coming up next week, which is a whole different audience. And reality TV kind of documentary stuff, that's got a different audience. It's just interesting seeing what's going on right now. They're trying to jump around all over the place, and Disney's trying to find how Disney Plus has been a massive success for them. And I think there's always going to be that big chunk of people that will have Disney Plus because they've got kids and the kids are watching it, and that'll be a baseline to keep subscriptions going. And Marvel and Star Wars are going to bring in this other audience that'll be doing it. But just fun to see how they're doing it. And there was a lot of talk in the investors call about it's all about growth and building up, and you can see that they're right at the minute of just trying to work out. And they keep saying, "Well, we're new to this and all the rest of it." And again, well, guys, you've been running television channels for decades. You're one of the most established entertainment companies. This is kind of, it's all new to us. It's only going to last so long. So it's like, yeah, they've kind of got to work this out. But I think generally as a whole, the investors call really did manage to hit loads of stuff coming in. They did say as well that there's going to be no price hikes in the near future, which I think was important. I think they said that it's what's working is working. They're not looking at the price. It's like, yeah, they can't even look to do price changes really until it's globally launched. They said as the originals grow, they might start looking into it. It's like, yeah, if they start and it depends on how quickly people start dropping the other television channels and what's going on, that's when they're going to start reinvesting. But ultimately, there's always going to be a price rise. But if Disney Plus goes up, so will everybody else. They're all going to be going up over time.
Yeah, it's inevitable unless there's like a massive deflation across all markets where suddenly prices just start dropping everywhere. Everything will go up. There will be inflation in all markets. And yeah, it's annoying. We obviously don't want to pay a higher price. But like you said also, or they said at the investor call, if you want original content, that's got to be paid for somehow. They can fill the back catalog. It's already paid for. The only thing at that point that's a continued expense is the digital storage and transmission fees. That's it. But if you want to make Mandalorian, if you want to make Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you got to pay salaries and special effects budgets and all that stuff. And at some point, if we expect them to continue producing quality content on a regular basis, unfortunately, we've got to pay more for it. But I hope it's not anytime soon.
Yeah. And the big thing as well that I've noticed this week that I want to kind of get into, which I think I thought was an interesting story, which was apparently there's an upcoming writer's strike coming up at the minute in Hollywood, where they've done this in the past and might be coming in after May, where the writers and stuff will start going on strike and new shows won't happen so much because they've on strike while they're trying to get more money. A lot of it is also stemming from the idea as well of like actors and stuff coming in, of the money coming in from streaming services, because it's all been based around television adverts and the affiliate and going into syndication stuff. And everything's going on the streaming platforms. They're saying, well, no, it actually works differently. And of course, the people that made those shows still want paying, but they're now company, Disney and other companies, not just Disney, but they're going, well, actually, no, we want to pay you more upfront, and then we don't have to pay you less in the long run. And streaming services work differently for advertising and all the whole industry is going through a flux. But apparently, they're basically stockpiling scripts at the minute. They're trying to get as much work done on scripts as possible. It might explain why we're hearing lots of work going on about, like the Obi-Wan series and the Doctor Strange movie. There's a lot of work going on these scripts to get them all done, I think, by May. And just stockpiling up stuff. I think we're going to see a lot more reality TV stuff. They've been stockpiling TV. So in some ways, all this back catalogue stuff is all going to become much more useful for the summer coming out. There are going to be a lot more international shows as well, because it doesn't come under the same rules. Because, like, obviously writers in, London and stuff aren't maybe part of the same union and all the rest of it. But this is going to be something coming up this year that might hit Disney Plus, but also that might be able to weather the storm because of bulking stuff up in advance. But just something to be aware of, that this is something I've started seeing being mentioned a lot in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's important to remember during the strike itself, or leading up to it, when the scripts tend to be rushed out, and then they just get some whatever they can out to continue stories. It's generally kind of like a dark period in television. Yeah. Like you said, a lot of reality shows, a lot of easy to produce non-scripted content. But when the strike eventually finishes, they come to an agreement. A lot of those writers, they're not working on the shows that they normally are, so it gives them a chance to kind of branch out and do new things. And what we've seen in the past is that they come in with some of the best scripts and stories right after the strike ends. And that's not like why we should have strikes. It's not like, I'm so glad there's a strike because there'll be great shows after the strike is done. But it is kind of a silver lining to an otherwise annoying cloud.
Yeah, also, because it kind of gives them, in some ways, a break, gives people time to sort of stretch out and stuff. But yeah, apparently, like overnight, they voted yes. 91% of people. It's all kind of it's all because it's the first strike since 2008. But apparently there was just a big rush on them getting all these scripts sorted so that they can get all these shows made and stuff. So that's it fundamentally. But ultimately, that could have an impact. Okay, so I think that covers most of the stuff from the investors' call. Moving on there, Disney are set to release Hamilton. They're going to be releasing a version in cinemas in October the 15th, 2021. It's actually a recording of the 2016 version of them on stage in New York. They bought it for like $75 million. I don't know necessarily if that includes rights to make maybe a proper version of it, but that one definitely caught a lot of attention, and a lot of discussion I saw from some of the big sheets and some of the big sites was about it being a massive draw for Disney Plus. They were just literally like, this is such a big thing for Disney Plus to start getting. And then there's a lot of other people who are going, well, it's too raunchy for Disney Plus, and it should be honest. Like, I've not seen it. I'll be honest. I've got no idea really what this one's about. But there was just a lot of talk about this Hamilton thing being a massive draw for Disney and also for Disney Plus.
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton has been huge here in the States for quite some time. I think it's still selling out theaters. You kind of have to be part of the lottery to even have a chance at tickets. I have not seen it. I will admit it's not really high on my priority list. However, I have family members who have seen it and rave about it. So there's no question that this is a big grab for Disney. I can't speak to the raunchiness. However, musicals do have a tendency to get pretty raunchy at times. Maybe it's because they can get away with a little bit more because kids don't necessarily know what the songs are. I remember as a young kid, we're talking like 6 or 7, listening to the Les Miserables soundtrack, and like there's an entire song in there that's just straight up about working women, and I had no idea what the heck it meant. I just thought it was a catchy tune. So we'll see if it ends up if Hamilton ends up on Disney Plus or if it ends up on Hulu. But either way, regardless of what service it ends up on, it is a pretty massive grab, at least here in the States.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting what they do with that one. Obviously, it just seems a bit odd that they're doing it for 2021. It's like if it's already filmed and in the can and already done, like why hold it off? But they've obviously got their reasons. But I'm interested to see what it is. But yeah, it'll be a big draw. I'm surprised they've not really done enough of it. I know they've already filmed the Aladdin musical for the same thing, but I think just as a general thing for Disney Plus, or having these filmed versions of their stage shows could be a massive draw for them to do in the future. Also, the other musical bit of news, Disney have signed a deal with Bruno Mars. He's going to be doing some music for an upcoming movie. He did like a nice little tweet about him kind of playing. He was on the piano playing, I think, Wish Upon a Star, and then at the end he kind of lifted his arm up and there's fireworks going off. Very nice little thing. I like Bruno Mars music. I like some of his stuff. He's one of the biggest selling artists. Having him involved in making some music for a new Disney Plus or for a new Disney movie, I think is great, because instantly my thought went straight to things like Tarzan and The Lion King, which were very much like, you had like Elton John and Phil Collins really working on the music for that. And yeah, I think that sounds great to me. And if it gives him a new challenge and something to put his head into that's a bit different, to me, it was just like win, win, win.
Yeah, and I appreciate that Disney has been willing to work with artists that you wouldn't necessarily consider for Disney. Like I think they did Shakira for Zootopia a number of years ago, and speaking of Hamilton, the writer for that did some of the songs for Moana. So it's another name on the list of branching out into different musical fields that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Because prior to Lion King, which was the Elton John one, it was all, Alan Menken, things like that. And they all kind of got a little bit samey. There was nothing wrong with that. I love all of those soundtracks from that time period. But once they got past that and really started to branch out, you got some really interesting musical vibes from some of these movies. Tarzan in particular is one of my favorites musically.
Tarzan. I mean, as much as it was, I always did like Genesis and Phil Collins anyway, but it does stand up of when that those songs come on from Tarzan. That movie was one that his music brought me into that one, because I remember when it came out, I think I was about 18, 19. It's like you'd hear the music on the radio and be like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. And that has, you watch that back there, and it has, his music was a big part of that movie. And that was instantly when I thought of, like, when you think of like bringing an artist to work on a movie, that one was one that stood out in my memory as being one, and that was a long time ago now.
Yeah, and I think Tarzan popped out in my I'm too cool for Disney phase, late teenager. But I remember hearing the soundtrack years later when I went back and watched the stuff that I missed. And was like, oh, this is definitely holding a spot on my on the tracks that I listen to frequently. And it still is. I still have it in my my go-to playlist of I'm just gonna hit shuffle and play whatever, and it pops up every once in a while. Love hearing them.
Also, a couple of other quick things I forgot from the investors call. I'm just going to quickly go through it again. Bob Iger did confirm that there was 10 Marvel series coming to Disney Plus. He did say, and now this is the important thing, I'm going to take this word for it. We have 3 Marvel series that were announced, and I think there are 7 other Marvel series that are at various stages of development or pre-production. Now, this kind of words got all over the internet. Now, those words were directly from a transcript, so I took it word for word what he said, because a lot of people were taking that of like, okay, well, we know that we've got the 3 that he said about, and then we know we've got Hawkeye, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Miss Marvel. So that must mean we've got another 3 shows coming. And then other people were including What's If, so that's 2 more seasons. And I'm like, yeah, there's 2 more missing. And my instant thought was, well, they've got Marvel 616 and Marvel Storyboards coming to Disney Plus, which are new Marvel TV series. And I put it out there that it's like, and everyone, no, it's new live action. Was like, I'm sure they are working on other Disney Plus movies, but my thought was, if you look at his words, it doesn't say live action, it doesn't say animated, it says there are 7 other Marvel projects, in production. And it's like, those ones, what these business people, they clump everything together. And if we've got 10 Marvel shows, whether or not we include Marvel Hero Project as a Marvel TV series, they do. we might not, but they do. And I was one of those things that go, I really hope there's another 3 more Marvel TV series in production, and I'm sure there's a lot more than that. But this one really kind of caught my attention. Of like, a lot of people like hyping up, and I'm reading it going, I'm reading that in an entirely different way.
Yeah, I'm not really reading it at all, honestly. No. The main thing to remember is we can't presume what his words mean. We can
No.
only go off of exactly what
Yeah.
he said, and he specifies nothing in it. So
No.
it's safe to assume that anything with Marvel attached to it, Marvel Superhero Project, 616, anything like that, is probably attached to that statement, but it might not be. He might be talking about, nope, it is 6 or 10 scripted shows with characters that you know and love, maybe a few new ones. The simple fact of the matter is we have no idea, and the only thing that can come out of this is pain when we realize we were wrong about what the expectations were one way or another. I will say to anybody listening, keep your expectations tempered. Expect like an absolute minimum, and that way when something nice comes out, they'll talk about some series you weren't expecting. It's a great surprise.
Yeah, I think that was the thing for me, was that I saw this a lot of like people getting, everyone was getting, all these stories and stuff are coming out of getting all hyped up about these 3 other series, and I'm going, ooh, I like, hold back, guys, just rein it in. He could be like talking about these other shows that we know are coming, and in far as like business speak, they do tend to lump them all in together. And it's like, I would love nothing more than for there to be another 3 live action drama series coming to Disney Plus. Maybe Secret Invasion, or we've got a new Inhumans, or Fantastic Four series, or something along those lines. But I also know that in the past that when that executives tend to look at it very much in much more simplistic terms sometimes, of going, they've got this many Marvel movies under this bracket, and Marvel shows will include anything under that banner. And I was just like, oh, everyone just hold your temptation, hold it back, just it was just like, just be aware there are 2 other Marvel series that they are working on that aren't live action.
Right. And it's not necessarily that they're simplistic terms, it's their shareholder terms. And the way you talk to shareholders and the way you talk to fans are completely different, because the shareholders don't care if there's a Moon Knight series coming. They have no emotional attachment to Moon Knight or Hawkeye or any of these characters. All they want to know is that you are creating a series that will make them money. That's it. And if you can pitch that in whatever way makes them think they are going to make money, that is the way you pitch it.
It's just one of those things. I just wanted to kind of bring that up and go, like, I really hope that there is a lot more, and I am sure there are loads more series being written down and worked out, and what they want to do with it after 2021 and 2022 when all these different series drop. But it was just that wording of, it's like, no, you're hearing one thing, and I'm looking at the transcript going, it didn't actually specify. That means it's wide open for either way. And so hopefully we will find out soon enough. But I still think for the next 2 years, once we get into August, we're set for Marvel. I think we'll be fine as they move forward with that there. I think next year will be much better than this year in terms of how they've had that drought. But let's move on to some other bits. Disney released a brand new trailer for Shop Class, which is a brand new series coming to Disney Plus on February the 28th. We'll be dropping weekly. It's kind of, what did you think of that trailer?
I honestly don't remember it. I know I watched it. I can't picture it. I'm just getting generic visions of people playing with like buzzsaws and stuff like that. I do know I liked it. It's another one of those shows where I would not buy Disney Plus for it, but having it there, and as long as it doesn't get too fluffy, it'll probably be on my weekly watch. But I don't know why, because I only watched it like a few hours ago. I can't picture it at all.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things of the visually, it did look very much like tons of other TV series that we've got. We've got Spelling Bee, there's Food Bake, got the Bake Off, and you've got all these kind of things, the Lego Masters, where everyone's got little desks and all the people are running around. They've got so much time to build this thing, and the hosts in the middle kind of cheering them all. And it's very safe. It's very simple, very simplistic. It looks, again, a little bit more kiddified than maybe it would have been quite nice to have seen adults doing this and seeing where, but I can see where they're going with this one. It looks interesting. I will definitely check out the first episode, see what I think of it. But yeah, I mean, I like the Lego versions, but I do prefer it. Again, we need, it's like they're going for kids. It's like it'd be nice to maybe have a bit more of a mix of adults and kids, and don't know, just they've got to find that fine line. But I thought the trailer looked good. Wasn't a lot of interest in it, but what did you think?
Yeah, so the one other thought I had on it is that typically here in the States, I don't know how it is over in, well, that's not true. I do have a decent idea of how it is in Britain, but for this kind of show, yeah, I'm going to use baking as the comparison because that's the biggest one we have. Here in the States, if it's targeted towards kids, it's generally much more wholesome. There's a lot more, oh, you made a mistake, but that's okay. We'll fix it by doing this.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's adults, it's how are you this stupid? How did you screw this up that bad? And while that can be entertaining in certain ways, I do kind of prefer the more wholesome approach. So I am glad that they're kind of going a little more that direction.
I think for me, like in my view of had this been on normal like terrestrial television on the BBC, as that's the kind of like my default in ITV, the way that the trailer adverts, it now slides into the kids programming chunk rather than in the mainstream. Because I would look at this and go, would this be on TV between 7 o'clock at night and 9 o'clock at night in the main prime time slot? No. This now would slide into the CBBS C version at the beginning because of the kids being involved. Whereas if you had the adults in, it would be at an 8 o'clock prime time slot, because I think we've got a lot of TV shows where they always focus on how they screw it up, but it's not usually, they're not normally maybe as mean as some of them can get. But generally, things like Great British Bake Off, and we've got a pottery show going on at the minute. There's a Legos, there's people doing dressmaking. There's all these different shows going on, all creating all around the same kind of thing. And when I watched that trailer, it went from mainstream to being on CBBC, and that was the problem for me. It was like, oh, you nearly had it, and then you've pulled back into the kids programming again. What you find on a Disney Channel, it felt like kids programming.
To be fair, that's what I was expecting, was kids programming straight from the decision. I will say the British television is generally a lot better about these shows. Like, there's a lot more about, let's do the British Bake Off or whatever, when they're making a cake. There's a lot less of people sniping at each other and getting mad at each other, and more like, oh, he's putting this kind of flourish on the cake, which will add these accents and things, which I actually appreciate. But I do realize that there is a big market for people watching other people yelling at people trying to create things.
It's the kind of thing of like, it's kind of I think it's gonna tie that line. Just, it's like, where is it going to sit? Is it going to be able to be something that becomes too much of a kid's show? This is the thing with all of them, and I don't know. It was like, you look at something like Disney Fairy Tale Weddings. I don't look at that as children's programming. It's like, you look at it, it's like, no, that
hope not.
No, but I'd look at that and go, yeah, but it's what I was meaning of, like, that's all adults, all about adults, it's aimed at adults. Kids might look at it and go, I want to, like, oh, that looks so pretty. But generally, that is an adult-orientated show. Whereas Shop Class was like, oh, well, I was hoping it was going a little bit higher in who it was aiming at.
See, I was just hoping it would be aimed higher than that little 5-minute craft show that they have. Which is very kiddie. Nothing wrong with that. It's got its target audience. I was only expecting it to be like a couple levels above that, which is right about where it landed, actually.
It's again, it's gonna mean to see where this one goes. It doesn't look like it might not move the needle till it kind of comes out and people can watch it and try it out. But I kind of watched them, was like, okay, it doesn't look as bad as I was expecting it to be, but it didn't quite hit where I was hoping it would be. So we'll just have to wait and see. Now, also this past week, we did see the Toy Story 4 movie was added. Again, a big movie for Disney Plus. I think we did talk about this one last year when it came out of cinemas, but I thought we would just kind of quickly gloss over again with quick thoughts on the movie as a whole. What did you think of Toy Story 4?
I thought it was a perfectly fine movie. I would lump it again there with, say, the live action Lion King, where I don't think it necessarily needed to exist, and it didn't really justify its existence. That said, I don't hold it against the movie. And I was entertained for the hour and a half that I watched it. It was great to see Woody and Buzz and all the toys again. Of course, Bo Peep coming back in after missing 3. It was a nice coda to the trilogy, because I really feel like 3 was the ending of the story, and now this is just kind of like the
soft
epilogue,
reboot.
soft reboot. You know, and Woody gets a satisfying closing story arc. I mean, there's room for more stories, but like everything that was built up through 1, 2, and 3 just kind of has that line under it now, which is nice.
Yeah, it's a kind of. I remember watching it, and it was just like one of those things of like, it came onto Disney Plus this week, and I was like, I'm not in a rush to watch it again. I was like, because I remember when we went to see it last year, it was like, yeah, this is okay. It was fine. Nothing wrong with it. Forky was fun. Lots of great fun moments in it. But it didn't quite hit the same point of the previous ones, and it was like, yeah, it's good, but I don't know. It felt a bit like, was this necessary? Is it just churning over the same old ground? I like the whole thing with Forky, and Buzz Lightyear was completely just shoved to the side. He wasn't even, barely had any words. It was more about, was it just Tom Hanks retiring from Toy Story? It was just kind of that kind of feeling of like, okay, we want this to carry on with a brand new set of characters, and we're kind of letting him kind of finish off because we've still got plans for the rest of it, because Tim Allen isn't quitting it.
No, he's not quitting it, even though he has made his displeasure of doing voice acting in general very well known. I mean, that's not Toy Story specific. He just hates doing voice acting. But yeah, they leave room for more stuff. I did appreciate the Toy Story 2 and 3 were basically the same story, just swapping Woody and Buzz around in you're going to be going to a utopia with all these toys and stuff. You know, the Japanese toy museum or the daycare center in 3. 4 was not a continuation of that formula, which I did like. In fact, it kind of inverted it a little bit. I think I actually would have preferred if this had just been 3.
Yeah.
You know, that, not to say I don't like the third Toy Story movie. Actually, it's a great movie.
I think,
But this would have been more satisfying as the conclusion to the trilogy rather than a conclusion to a quadrilogy.
It's an odd one. It's a bit of a funny one with. I think it was a big draw for people on Disney Plus this week. But it's funny how the conversation was much less about this one. Again, the thing is just the live action stuff. The live action stuff just churns everybody up. But yeah, I think getting Toy Story 4 was a big thing for Disney Plus. It's on there. I think everyone should definitely check it out. And it was one of a massive box office hit. But it's kind of one of those things of like, it was just a sequel with the same characters. This is what we all expected. We enjoyed it, and everyone moved along, kind of thing. And that's ultimately what. But it didn't really push the boundaries. But it's on there. Definitely check it out. Now let's talk about the big Disney Plus original this week. Was Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. A brand new Disney Plus movie that you can only find there. So I watched this one yesterday, and I know you did as well. So what did you think of this movie?
I'm mixed on it. There were parts, especially in the first half, that I really enjoyed, but it really loses the thread in the second half, and it's not a satisfying movie overall. Like, there are individual bits that were really, really well done that I liked, but as a movie, it never just kind of comes together.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a very, very interesting movie. It didn't feel like a Disney movie in some ways. It felt more like it kind of felt a little bit like a Fox kids movie. Even my wife, when we were watching it, said that she said it didn't feel Disney. It wasn't a very like feel good story, because I'm going to be honest, this kid, he didn't come across very well. He came across as I know he's caught up in his own world and all the rest of it, and you're sort of looking at it going, he just is horrible to everybody. He's completely caught up in his own world. He's selfish in that way of like, his friends at school. He's, you know, yeah, he's different, and I get this whole we've got to accept different and all the rest of it. But he was cruel to everybody. He was weird to everybody. As far as an adult goes, he was horrible to all of them. He didn't listen to anybody. I mean, on numerous occasions, he put them at life risk. I mean, I did think it was kind of funny when the teacher when they were panicking on the top of the water thing. Yeah,
no spoilers. No spoilers.
Yeah, but there was one bit that he did which was more like a hero. That I was like, okay, that he was kind of protecting a bit, but there was whole chunks of this movie where he was so irresponsible, and there was never really any consequences for it. The whole bank scene was just like you're gonna get this kid would get shot, you know. It was like, I don't know. And there's like the whole thing like with the kid running out of the store with the sumo suit on, you know, and they're just like, okay, like this kid just is not listening to. I know he's, you know, like I said, this whole thing of him being odd and different and not wanting to go up to the middle school, and you know, like, you know, that's the supplement thing of missing a father and not having all of this kind of stuff, and it just felt a little bit like this kid is horrible. He's a horrible little kid that just doesn't. I mean, he had a little bit of growth, but it was like squeezed into the last 2 minutes, and it just felt like I was just like. I mean, my wife just said he is a brat. He's a horrible little brat, and it's like you don't. And it's like we both said he's not a good role model for kids to be watching this, going, "This is what your kid should be like," because it's like you don't want your kid being like that. And it's like, I know they did the story and they're moving on in it, but I was watching going, I mean, I kind of liked the character, but at the same time, it's like, I didn't. It was really strange.
I feel the same way. Like, I loved his worldview. I loved the quirky things where you would just take some random thing and his imagination would just go nuts. Those were the best scenes.
Yeah.
You know, that there's the scene where his friend, he's got to find his friend. It's like, oh, his friend's at fencing class. And you're like, and his picture of what fencing class, I was like, I love wordplay like that. So that was a great scene. And
there was this one bit, and I'm going to mention this now, where if you're watching this movie and the screen gets a big black box in the middle of it, I got off the TV, off the chair, and was crawling around over onto I was about to touch the iPad to try and fix it because I thought it had broken. I was like, what the hell? It's like, I was like, in the later bits, it's like a smaller little box just random. And I'm thinking, it was enough for me to get off the sofa to think that my iPad was playing it, like a notification had come through, and the app had played that. And I'm like, what? And then it's like, and then they did it later on. I was like, got into it, but that was really weird. I understand what he was doing with it, but I thought my app was broken, and I got up to turn it off.
Yeah, see, I know exactly which part you're talking about. That was great. I loved that entire little subplot with the black box. Avoiding spoilers. I just loved that little sequence. There are so many of these little bits and pieces, especially in, like I said at the beginning, the first half of the movie. We're just like, this is quirky, this is fun. He's got a great worldview. I want to know more about his worldview. And then you get to the second half, and you get, you know, him being massively irresponsible and putting people in danger, putting himself in danger, not taking any responsibility for his action. I realized that was one of the subplot points, was the whole...
Well, this whole thing of, like, mistakes were made is his way of, like, not saying sorry. Yeah. That's the whole thing of the title of the movie. And obviously at the end he apologizes, and you're like, mistakes were made. And it's like...
Yeah, but...
Because he won't... And it was like, yeah, but they didn't really, like, I don't know, it was really strange. It was just like, I mean, there was a lot, like you said, there was lots of great little moments, lots of aesthetic stuff which I think worked really well, and things that worked. But there was whole other things. It was like, I got to the end of the movie and I'm like going, what was the actual plot? If I was to sit here now to try to explain to you what the movie is about, it doesn't have a middle ending or an end. There's nothing happened.
No, in fact, the very ending is a setup for what I presume is a sequel of him continuing.
There's like 5 or 6 books. Yeah,
and obviously we haven't read any of them, so we don't know what the full plot is. I do want to jump back though, where mistakes were made is his I'm not going to take responsibility for my actions. And then at the end of the movie, he does say sorry. And normally that would be the like, oh, that's the growth moment. He is taking responsibility. But then you're like, wait, but all the people, and there are multiple people who had their lives screwed up by this kid's crazy antics, don't get any form of recompensation for it. He completely screws up the life of one of the people involved. Now, admittedly, not necessarily a great person, but it was at the same time, you're like, as I'm watching the movie, you've got this one character who's like, oh, he's just a jerk. And then you're like, yeah, no, if I had to deal with this kid every single day, I would definitely be doing the same thing as well. Because he's only a jerk to the one character, to Timmy.
And even that, I mean, even them, he's there going, I've always looked after every single kid. I've never had a failure. Never had, and I
never given up.
Never given up. And it's like this one kid just pushes him to his absolute, and to the point where he's literally ill. He's literally ill from what he does. And then, may or not have wrecked his house. And it's just this kind of thing. I was just like, that teacher, he wasn't maybe the best teacher, but you kind of go, I can see why he's just like, he's like this back-chatting little kid that just won't do anything he's being told.
For me, it's that old truism about the Little Mermaid. The older you get, the more you sympathize with King Triton versus sympathizing with Ariel, because like, no, she has no idea what she's doing. She is putting herself in massive danger over absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And
it's the same with this, where at the beginning of the movie, you're like, wow, this guy is just a complete jerk to this. It's the typical, adult is apparently evil for being the sake of evil. And as you go through the movie, you're like, no, he actually has something of a point here. And, he has a talk with the mom, and it's a talk that almost every kid's parent has had with a teacher at some point. Your kid's underachieving, we see the potential, but he's not meeting it, kind of thing, and then you keep going through. It's like, Tim actually is like, no, I never do my homework. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to drop out after 5th grade and do my detective agency. I'm like, yeah, you're actually pretty awful, kid.
Yeah, it was strange. I mean, it's like, you had the school counselor helping him out and kind of, but it's like, it's felt like every time he did some homework or something like that, he was having to be tricked into doing it or doing it for somebody else. And I don't know, it was a very strange. I mean, it was funny because I was saying this to my wife. It's like, I remember being a kid, being around that age, whizzing around town on my push bike, thinking I've got either a spy or a detective agency, and I had a book where I wrote things down, and you'd be like there with binoculars and just looking at people in the park and making up all this stuff in your head. I completely got where this kid was coming from. It's like, that was me, that age. I did that. I generally didn't like kids at school. They were friends because they were put in the same class as you. That was it. We were all kids chucked in a room together, and you're supposed to know, your best friends. Like, no, that I completely sympathized with where this kid was, because it's like, I can see parts of him in me. But it was like, even I'm there going, this kid's pushing it to that next level where he was like, but again, there wouldn't seem to be a story arc to kind of building, and him, that big grand speech and all the rest of it. And you're just like, oh, this is such a weird, like, cliche on an end of a movie, which was not cliche. It was so different, very different. I mean, the host stuff, the polar bear added a number of good, like, slapstick humor on the side. And that whole thing was rather interesting, but I don't know. It was just a really strange movie. My wife hated it. She thought it was terrible. The words that I can't actually use on the podcast. And I sort of got to the end and go, wow, that was really rough. That wasn't what I was like, is it a good kids movie? I think so, but I don't know at what point a kid would not want to watch that. Very strange movie. It's different, and I applaud them for doing it. But it was very odd. It was a very odd Disney movie. It didn't feel like like, had that been released at cinemas, I don't know what would have happened to it.
Yeah, and it's still, from a kid's perspective, I suspect it'll be perfectly fine, because this is also a lot like, say, the Home Alone movies, where you just kind of go with it, and it's a vehicle for slapstick, quirky humor, all that stuff, and if you actually try to think about the moral implications, or the even the logistic implications, it all terribly falls apart massively. But if you just go in it with a ride, turn your brain off, it's not that bad. Especially, it's got some great jokes in the first
I
half.
laughed. I did laugh quite a lot out loud. My wife was like going, "What?" She didn't get the humor to it, but there was a number of things that I was laughing at, and I did have a good chuckle. I'm glad I watched it, and it was like that kind of thing. But it very much felt in the average zone. I don't think I would ever watch it again. It just didn't. It was one of those. And if a Timmy Failure 2 comes along, I'd give it a go, but I don't know. I don't know where this movie's gonna. It'd be interesting to see where it falls into, because I think the trouble is it went to that Sundance Film Festival last week and kind of got in front of a whole different audience, and I'm really interested to see where it goes in terms of like the audience, what they felt of it, what they liked about it. Because at the minute it's only like barely even 24 hours since it launched, so we've not really got that feedback. But it's a very, very, I think it's going to be a bit one of those things of either like it or not, and it is a bit odd.
Yeah, just don't think too hard about it. Definitely don't think too hard about the polar bear, because, that one's weird. I mean, there's some great moments with the polar bear, but if you try to work out the logic with it, some people can see it, some people can't. It's maybe a dog that he's pretending is a polar bear, but he has to go to the zoo to find it. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, my wife kind of said, well, that's his dad. It's like his dad left and the polar bear turned up. So like the polar bear is like the company and all the rest of it. But the whole thing of going to the zoo, and also like the whole subplot with the meter maid was just like, was trying to replace that, but then it didn't. And then it was this fun. It was like, even that there was that one scene that's like at the end, and he's just like, the meter maid and the mum are like on two different sides of the field, and I'm going, what? Why are you over there, mate? You should be down there. It was just like, it's a bit creepy, mate. You should be.
Yeah, because he's just sitting there in the chair, and I'm like, okay, he's holding down the fort until the mom shows up, and then no, mom's over on the other side of the field next to someone else. Like, okay, did we miss something? Are they now separated, but he still wants to come to this presentation? It's like, I feel like if we'd read the book, there's a lot of context that didn't make it into the movie. But I don't know. It's entirely possible that this is also one of those situations where they took the name, maybe a couple ideas, and everything's just completely from.
Hey, had he been standing next to the mum, it would have made it was totally fine. But there was lots going. But why is he there on his own? It was like, I know it's like it's your girlfriend's kid, so you're supporting them and all the rest of it. But it was a bit like stand with the mum. It looks a bit odd. It was just like things like that, and it just, I don't know. It was, there's so many things in this movie that are just odd. So let me
put it this way: that for my personal final thoughts is, I spent like the majority of the middle of the movie, after most of the quirky jokes had kind of gone through, wondering where I had seen his mom before. Like, because I was like, I know this actress. What have I seen her before? And that was like the bulk of the movie in the middle, where just like, there's nothing interesting going on here, so I'm going to try to figure out who this woman is. I did eventually figure out who it was.
What was she in?
She was in Guardians of the Galaxy, actually. She was one of the servants to the collector. With the pink face.
It was all kind of, it's just like I said, the problem is as well is there's not really like a plot. There's not. It's like, I don't know. It's like, and even the end of like what I would call the main plot about the mobile, just like kind of ended, and we got moved and shuffled aside and going, well, that was what the whole thing's about. I don't know. It was just a very odd movie. I
feel like there's a lot of context missing, which is going to happen with any book to movie conversion, even a young adult book, which isn't all that long. I have to admit, I'm not like compelled to go and find out what is missing from the book. I'm not planning on reading the books at this point. But yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like we're missing some critical information that we would otherwise have if we'd read the book.
Yeah, it's like looking at this from, like, we were talking about this, of like kids we know, of like, I don't know if the kids would watch it. It's like the 8-9-year-olds that we know of, like, going, I don't want the attention span. It's like the polar bears, the only thing that might keep them going along, and the odd scene and stuff. It was just like very odd. It's a very odd movie. I think now, we've got 4 Disney Plus movies right now. We've got Noelle, Lady and the Tramp, Togo, and this, and they're all going off in completely different directions, which is great. But at the same time, they're just like, where are you going with all of this? It's like, we got Stargirl coming up in a few weeks' time, and now we're like, okay, well, where does this one fall in line of, like, there's such a big difference between them all, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But it was something original, and I like that. I like the idea that they went and tried something completely different, and it wasn't cliched in this, because it definitely wasn't cliched, because they definitely went off on a complete different tangent, and it looked different, and it felt different, and the character was different, but he just wasn't very likable.
No, he was not likable, and I felt bad for a lot of the adults. It did feel like it was going to go into cliche territory several times, and then they kind of swerved hard in another direction, but not in a way that was like illogical or just made you look. It actually made sense within the context of the story. So I give them credit for that. That you thought you knew where they were going with stuff, and then they didn't, but it made sense. So good on that. Having said that, jumping slightly back to something you said before that, I don't think this does slot in with any of the other stuff that's either come out or is coming out. Togo, Stargirl, Noelle, all this stuff. They're completely different movies, and I think that is the strategy. You're not trying to say, oh, you liked Togo, you should go watch Timmy Failure, our next original. No, it's like, you liked Togo, here's some other recommendations for movies of the same style, or maybe some National Geographic's documentaries about Alaska. Here you go. And then Timmy Failure comes along, and it's for a completely different audience. And then Stargirl comes along, and that's for a completely different audience. They're trying to make sure that everybody who has Disney Plus has something they can watch, because not everything's for everybody. Obviously, neither of us are particularly looking forward to Stargirl at all, but we're not the audience for it.
No, it was just one of those things of, like, I watched that movie, and I got to the end, and I went, yeah, that was different. I'll applaud that for being different, but I'm really interested to see what everyone thinks of it, because what is, like I say, when I sort of watched it, my wife didn't like it, and I'm like going, well, that was a bit weird, but I kind of liked it, but didn't like it, and I did like, and then we had a quick discussion, and then, like, you didn't, and I'm going, okay, and then I read a few other people's online would kind of said the same thing. I go, oh, okay, where's this going? It's like, don't know. It's like, well, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. So let us know in the comments below, or get in touch on social media. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you thought of Timmy Failure. I'm pretty much going to wrap up this week's episode of the What's on Disney Plus podcast. So again, big thank you to all of your support on Patreon, and also if you're a subscriber. Also make sure as well, you find us over on the website and bits and pieces like that. And on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us, and we shall see you guys in another episode. Later.